couple weeks ago, my husband was out of town in, middle of the night. Not a balloon this time, but, I hear this, wakes me up. Chirp, chirp, chirp. I'm like, what the heck is that? So, a minute goes by and I think, some fluke, maybe I'm dreaming it. No, chirp, chirp, chirp. So I get up and I'm looking all around the house. It's a mystery that you have to solve in the middle of the night when you start hearing beeps. I heard it one more time, but I couldn't find the source of it. So I decided to just go back to bed and, go back to bed. The next night, 1:30 in the morning, chirp, chirp, chirp. So actually, before I went to bed that night, I unplugged all the electronics in the house because I didn't know where it was coming from or what it was. But still, chirp, chirp, chirp. So I'm going in every room, and then I catch it, and it's the smoke alarm. So I'm Googling at 2 o'clock in the morning, looking for the manual to the smoke alarm because I can't find the physical one. And it says 3 beeps, 3 chirps means it's malfunctioning. I'm like, okay, so I guess I'm going to have to replace the smoke alarm tomorrow while he's out of town. And so it does it again, and so the next morning I talked to Kevin on the phone, and he says, oh, it's the battery. I said, it's not the battery. I know it's not the battery. The manual says it's not the battery. The battery does one little chirp, and then you spend the whole rest of the night going from room to room trying to catch that tiny little chirp. Anybody ever experienced that? Why does it happen in the middle of the night? It always happens in the middle of the night. It's a mystery. So he said, just change the battery. It's the battery. I'm like, it's not the battery. So I changed the battery on the one that I caught, and the next night, chirp, chirp, chirp. It's one of those things that you just don't know. There's so much stuff that goes on in our lives that we just don't know, that it's a mystery. But we want to know as human beings. We want to know. We want to get to the source of it. But we don't know. Let's watch the video. So I share that video because Unity World Headquarters, we're following their theme this year, Perfect Vision, Seeing Through a Spiritual Lens. And they have sub-themes each month, and January is mystery. The first thing when we're looking for that clear vision, that clear day, is to know that we don't know everything. To seeing through a spiritual lens is holding that space of mystery, that space of not knowing. We as humans want to know. We want to know, why is this happening? Why me? It says in the book of Job, can you fathom the mysteries of God? Can you probe the limits of the Almighty? They are higher than the heavens above. What can you do? They are deeper than the depths below. What can you know? I love the story of Job. If any of you have read the book of Job, it's in the Hebrew scriptures, the Old Testament. And it's very long. Nobody knows who wrote it. It was written thousands of years ago, but it's our story. Job is a very wealthy man by the standards of the time. He's got 10 kids, 7 sons and 3 daughters. He's got lots of livestock. He's very blessed. And he loves God. He's strong in his faith. And so one day, Satan comes to God and says, Job is only faithful because you've made him a wealthy man, because he has so many blessings. He has so many children. Look at all that he has. Of course he's faithful. Take those things away and just see how faithful he is. Satan's testing God, testing Job. And so the next day, God says, sure, go ahead, do whatever you want, but don't harm Job. And so the next day, the livestock are being slaughtered, and his slaves are being killed, and then his whole family is in one house at a dinner, and they all die in a storm. And Job still is faithful. Well, things come and things go. God gives and God takes away. And Satan says to God, well, you didn't do anything to him. It's much easier for us to stay faithful when it's not us that's being afflicted, when it's not us that's being physically harmed. And so Satan says, I think we need to harm Job. Let's do something to Job. And God said, okay, but don't kill Job. But you can do anything you want. And so Satan boils all over his body, and he's suffering, and he's in a lot of pain. And then Job gets into a bad place. He gets into a dark place, and he starts saying, why me? Why is this happening to me? I'm such a good person. I've been so faithful. This shouldn't be happening to me because I'm a righteous, good, God-fearing person. And so 3 of his friends come over, and they start talking to him about, well, Job, you must have done something. You must have done something bad. You must have sinned at some point. You must have done some evil, because God wouldn't punish you otherwise. This is on you. And Job, no, I'm perfect. I'm in a good place. I've done everything right. And his 3 friends keep trying to tell him there's something. You must have done something. And they don't get anywhere. And Job all this time is saying, where is God in all this? Why is this happening to me? Why me? Why should it happen to me? It should be happening to people who are evil, and people who do wrong, and people who are unkind. This shouldn't be happening to me. Anybody ever been there? This shouldn't be happening to me. And then another friend of his comes over, and he's much younger, and so he had let the 3 other friends speak first because he thought, well, maybe I'm not as wise. But he's listening to them, and it's not making sense to him what they're saying. And so he starts talking to him, and he starts asking questions to put Job in a different frame of mind, to have him be more receptive, start thinking spiritually. And then, as he's ready, God comes and starts talking to him. But God does not answer any of his questions. God never answers his questions. Instead, God says, where were you when I created the earth? Where were you when I created the clouds and the wind and the sun and the stars? Where were you when all this was being created? He never answers Job's questions. But Job comes to realize, because he had been thinking spiritually, that it didn't matter that he didn't have an answer, that he could rest in the not knowing that God was present, that in the midst of his suffering, Spirit was right there all the time. All he needed to do was turn back. All he needed to do was repent, turn back to God, to that spiritual part of himself. And so what I love about the Bible stories is that there are stories. There are stories, because each person in the Bible, each person in this story is an aspect of us, an aspect of our consciousness. There's the Spirit, the centered part, the part of us, the divine part of us. There's the Satan, the personification of all of our negative thoughts. And they play around in our minds. We always have a choice. Which one are we going to follow? We always have a choice. And we can choose, because we have free will, to sometimes go with well, let's see how this negative is going to work out. Let's try it out. And what happens when we try it out? We start justifying. Here's the three friends. They represent our intellect. And our intellect wants to rationalize and justify and blame and, oh, poor you, you're a victim, you didn't deserve this. See how that works in our minds? And when we are in that frame of mind, in that intellectual frame of mind, there's no room for spirit. It feels like God isn't there because we're in a blaming, rationalizing place in our own consciousness. So we have to start thinking spiritually. That's what this younger friend comes and starts asking him questions. It's in the questions, not so much the answers, where we can start discerning. Things that are spiritual need spiritual discernment. And then when we're open and ready, we can realize that God's here in the midst of it all. It's not that we have an answer to why me. We don't get that. We rarely know why things happen the way they do. We may never know in our human realm, in this human realm, why things happen the way they do. Why me? But we can know that God is there. We can know that Spirit is there with us in the midst of it, and then we can turn back. Turn back to that spiritual nature that is within us and feel the blessings in whatever's going on, that there is a blessing in it, that there is a lesson in it, that there is something for us to learn in that. It's not always easy because we want answers, right? In our humanness, we want to know. We want the certitude. We want to know what it is. I read Richard Rohr's, he's a Franciscan priest, his daily meditations. And he talks about there are two kinds of people. People who demand certitude. They have to have an answer and they have to be right. And they have to know it. And people that seek understanding. And so these two kinds of people don't play well together. Because if we know that we're right and we're standing in our we're right, where is there room for understanding? Where is there room to build a bridge? Where is there room to connect with someone that maybe doesn't think the way we do? There's no room for understanding in certitude. He says this about certitude. Rational certitude is exactly what the scriptures do not offer us. They offer us something much better and an entirely different way of knowing. An intimate relationship, a dark journey, a path where we must discover for ourselves that grace, love, mercy, and forgiveness are absolutely necessary for survival in an uncertain world. You only need enough clarity and ground to know how to live without certitude. Yes, we really are saved by faith. People who live in this way never stop growing, are not easily defeated, and frankly, are fun to live with. Do you want to be more fun to live with? Don't demand to be right. Let the mystery be. Let the unknown just be. We don't need the whole thing spelled out for us. A few weeks ago when we did the white stone ceremony, I often will do, because I was doing the talk, I went into meditation the night before and asked the question, what is my word for this year? What's my intention for this year? And I had been thinking about what it would be. Thinking, not letting it flow. And so as I was coming out of that meditation, which oftentimes happens for me, is that just as I'm coming out, the word zeal came to me. Zeal. I thought, well, that's a great word. I've been kind of like humdrum, kind of like, oh, I have to do this again, kind of since I got ordained, because for me, I like to be working towards something, and when it's over, there's a brief, and then, okay, what's next? And I haven't been working on what's next. And so zeal was a great word to get me enthused, but I didn't claim it. I didn't write it on my stone. In fact, the next day, we had our white stone ceremony, and I held my stone. I didn't have a word on my stone. Don't like sharing that. But I didn't have a word. You know why I didn't have it? I didn't claim it because I didn't know how to do it. I don't know how to get zeal. I don't know how to get enthused. We all have this power of zeal, this ability to get excited and get enthusiastic about things. I was looking for a whole laid out plan. And just as I tell you all the time, guidance comes one step at a time. But I didn't know how I was going to do zeal. And so the whole week went by, and I kept looking at that stone and not ready to write that word on there. And so the next Saturday, I went into meditation. And what I often do is I will ask a question. And then I go to a place of answering, I don't know. Saying I don't know opens you up, opens your mind up, opens your consciousness up to whatever infinite possibilities. Whatever. Anything can fill when you say, I don't know. When we let go of that certitude and I have to have it a certain way and I have to be right, just go, I don't know. So after my meditation that day, it became very clear to me what's one thing I could do. I didn't need a whole plan. One thing I could do, and I thought, I love being a student, and that's what I'm missing about since I got ordained. I haven't been a student. I haven't been in a class. I love being in classes. And so I went online and signed up for a continuing ed class. Like, yay, this feels good. So what's one thing you can do, to bring your word about? So another thing that I did was I went to James Twyman, who had been sending emails out about his one-man Broadway show that he's going to do starting, I think, in April. And the show that he's going to do, they're inviting all the homeless people of New York to have a meal with them before the show. They're going to feed them. They're going to give them blankets and gloves and hats and coats, scarves. And so I went and donated a bunch of blankets and had them sent to them. They have a link you can go to if you're interested. And that felt good. And then, so one little step at a time with zeal. One little thing at a time. I don't need the whole plan. We're so used to Google Maps, right? We see the whole route on our phones or on our laptops, and it even shows you, oh, there's traffic here, there's an accident here, look out. Life isn't like that. We don't get a whole road map laid out for us. We don't know where the side trips are going to be or where the traffic's going to slow us down. It's mystery. We need to just let that mystery be. Let it be. In the Hebrew Scriptures, there's another story in the book of Deuteronomy. And in the book of Deuteronomy, this is the time when Moses is preparing the people to go to the Promised Land. And they've been wandering around for a lot of years, and they were in slavery in Egypt for 400 years. And so he knows that he's not going to the Promised Land, but his people are. And so a lot of this book is about him talking to them before they part ways. And he's thinking, what can I say to people who I'm not going to see them again? What lesson do I want to give them? What words of wisdom do I want to give them? And they were saying, what's it going to be like? What's going to happen when we cross over? What's going to happen to us in this Promised Land? How will we behave? How will we act? And so he tells them, basically his whole speech was about there are two ways to live. You can obey the Lord and follow the law, or not. And if you obey the Lord, follow, and metaphysically would say, follow your guidance, work with spiritual laws instead of trying to work against them, then it's not that life will be easy, and it's not that life won't have challenges, but it'll be more fulfilled. It'll be more joyful. Or if we don't, it's the harder way. It's the harder way to go. When we work with spiritual laws, say the spiritual law of giving and receiving, if we need to receive without giving, it doesn't work very well. And vice versa. If we only give and never receive, there's no flow. We need that flow. We need to open that door to let it circulate. And so then he says this at the end of that speech: the secret things belong to the Lord our God, but the revealed things belong to us and to our children forever, to observe all the words of this law. He's saying that there are things we won't know. They want to know, what's it going to be like? There are things we won't know. That's part of the mystery. That's part of that holding that. There are things we won't know. And the things that we do know, the things that have been revealed to us, are ours to work with. There are things in life that we just will never know the answer to. Can we hold that? Can we hold that mystery, that unknown, that unknowable, and let it be? Or do we need to put our foot down and say, I need to know the answer. I need to be right. I need to be sure. Part of seeing through a spiritual lens is holding that unknown. We can only see 4% of the universe. Isn't that amazing? 4%. There's so much we don't know. Sure, we've learned a lot, but there's so much we don't know. So how comfortable are we with that? With that not knowing, with that mystery? How comfortable are you with that? Can you live by faith and not by circumstance? We all have this ability to trust, to believe, and to expand those beliefs. That's our power of faith. It's one of the 12 spiritual powers, our power of faith, that power to believe. Can we trust? Every time before I prepare a talk for Sunday, I will ask the question, what needs to be heard and what needs to be said? I don't know. And then I have to go into a place of trust, a place of faith. I didn't know till yesterday what I was going to talk about today. It was a mystery to me, I kept saying. We need to trust, have some faith that underneath it all things are working for good, no matter what is going on in our lives. And there's a lot in our humanness that can challenge us. Lots. But can we stay trusting that Spirit is there, that underneath all that there is goodness? We don't know why we were born when we were born, when we're going to lay down these bodies, and where we go, what happens when we do. None of that is known to us. We have our suspicions and we can have our beliefs, but we don't know. It's all mystery. Can we let the mystery be and live by faith? This great power that created the universe, that created all this beauty, that created each of us. What's it for? If not for good. It's our choice to let the mystery be and be in a place of peace with it. See through that spiritual lens, in that there are things that are not going to be revealed to us until we're ready. Richard Rohr says this about mystery. Mystery is not something you can't know. Mystery is endless knowability. I had to really think about that for a while. It's not that we can't know all the secrets of the universe, it's that we don't know them yet. It's endless knowability. Living inside such endless knowability is finally a comfort, a foundation of ultimate support, security, unrestricted love, and eternal care. For all of us, it takes much of our life to get there. It is what we surely mean by growing in faith. I can't prove this to you. Each soul must learn on its own, hopefully aided by observing other faith-filled people. So this is our task. Grow our faith. See through the spiritual lens that we don't know everything, that we can't know everything, and let it be okay. Just let that mystery be. And do that this week. Hold that unknowing. And work on what has been revealed to you. Take steps on what you are guided to do. It's ours to do. Namaste. Peace be with you.